Hello, and welcome to the Mysterious Adventures Podcast. I am your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awijan. Mysterious Adventures is available on all of your favorite podcasting apps, and I thank each and every one of you once and always for downloading and listening to the show. It is a great pleasure to be back on board with you once again today, though the circumstances not so great. This past week or so, approximately, the past week and a half or so, we lost a very loyal listener to this show, who also happened to be a dear friend and a coworker who became a very nice friend, a very good friend, a dear friend. But so we're going to talk about him today. We are not going to give out his real name. We're going to simply call him Karl. So that's what we're going to go with today, out of respect for the family. What potentially happened to Karl about the last, within the last 10 days or so. So definitely, it's definitely a sad thing. Definitely was a heavy few moments at work when we found out the news, and we were kind of suspecting the worst. At least some of us were. So I guess we'll start the story out right about here and now. Really, in general, Karl loved Mysterious Adventures. And there's nothing. It's like I almost never had this feeling before of, how some people out there they do a podcast or whatever, and they start to get popular, and people start talking to them like, oh, when's the next episode? And then they get emails and this and that. I don't really get a whole lot of that. In fact, really not at all. But Karl, when I'd come into work, he would ask me, when's the next Mysterious Adventures? When's the next Mysterious Adventures? It's almost like it's like becoming like crack to me. And he doesn't mean that like drugs. He meant that like just that he's addicted to it. He loves Mysterious Adventures so much. And just hearing that meant the world to me. And what a nice guy Karl truly was. And a lot of people saw him as this innocent person, this innocent, kind person who was kind of always, whenever, was always there to help at work, always trying to do his best, always, like never complained, always had a sense of humor, a smile on his face, or if not a smile, maybe like just listening, like, oh, that's interesting. He was a great listener. He would smile and all of that. He would talk sports with me. We'd go for, sometimes like the second break would be a short break. We'd go for a walk outside, like sometimes I'd go by myself listening to podcasts. Generally, I'm kind of a loner at times on my breaks. But he offered like, hey, you want to walk and talk? I'm like, sure, why not? So, and we talk about things, maybe the next episode coming up or past episodes or, of course, sports. We talk about sports. And then occasionally it would lead into real life stuff, where Karl was having a little bit of financial issues. And that kind of leads into the story a little bit here. Segues into things here, as Karl had some financial issues. I'm not exactly sure. He never really divulged in me as to why he had financial issues. And if I come back with it, I'll talk about it maybe in a later episode as to what took place. But he would often have a second job, like where he'd work during the weekend, being a security guard versus, working in the factory. But he would run into some financial issues at times. And then, we talked about not too long ago that Karl had, the company that ran, the security company had basically, it was like a change of ownership. And then the change of ownership, for some reason, beyond any of our understanding, didn't keep Karl. So we didn't understand that. So he was out of his second job, but he still had his first job. You'd think everything was going to be okay, but he still had his first job. And you figured in having the first job, again, well, there you go. At least you have the main one. You can always hopefully come up with something later on that can kind of get you back on your feet again, so to speak, or work overtime at the first job, which sometimes is better anyway. Sometimes I suppose he would get longer hours at the other place. But then again, no, what am I talking about? I mean, overtime is time and a half. You'd think he wouldn't mind doing that. but that never ended up happening. Most of us didn't even really realize he had been out of that job in the first place until later on, unfortunately. But also, just some of the interesting conversations we would have in the past, like especially the Void episode, is kind of really when me and Karl started, having that in common, like enjoying the show, and he would kind of be interested in what we were going to talk about here on Mysterious Adventures. And that's one of the reasons why it just felt so good to have a friend like that cared about similar things. Is sometimes at work, people just don't care about anything you have to say, or they just don't, or you just don't have the similar interests. They're like, oh, you do a podcast? Cool, that's nice to know, and then they just pretend to care. And then like a month later, did you ever check it out? And like, no. And it's like, of course they didn't, because they're just kind of pretending to care and just want you to kind of, get off the topic and move on. That's kind of what the vibe you usually get, where Karl was much more sincere. He actually was sincerely interested in the topic and kept getting more and more interested in how the Void. We even recently had a conversation where when I showed what the Void looked like, which you could see on Instagram, Facebook page, I never did a video of it. I probably should put it on the YouTube channel one of these days. I think I should. Mysterious Adventures 79 on YouTube. I should do a video about that, but he was saying, yeah, I can see where it was pretty creepy and why, it was just something that's kind of out of the ordinary. Going back to the Void episode. And me and Karl had conversations about that. He really liked the episode Nimrod and the Nephilim. He'd listened back to that so multiple times. The Mothman episode, he thought that was pretty cool. But but at the end of the day, Karl's financial troubles were stressing him out more than we knew. And then at work, you have to have your username and password to sign in order to work in the different stations and such. But you have your universal username and password that works for all the stations. You understand? And for some reason, his password wasn't working one day. Was it Tuesday before last? Basically, his password wasn't working, and he just, I don't know. I should go back the day before, Monday. The Monday before the Tuesday, so Monday before last. I was kind of just joking around about how I didn't like the music, and Karl was there with Don. That's another guy. We'll just I'm making up names here, but similar. But if they happen to be listening, they'll know it's them, I guess. Karl and Don, we'll say, were I was just getting a little. It was the second break, whatever, the short one. Just getting a cup of coffee, whatever, quick. I was going to go for a walk outside. And I was just kind of joking around about how the music is terrible. And I was joking around how I imagine if this was during Dracula's days, he would just, that guy would put people to death just for stealing an apple or something, like in the days of Vlad Tepes. And then Karl just kind of looked at me like with this soulless look. And it was so weird. So strange. He had this soulless look on his face. Like normally he would just kind of like maybe either chuckle or just kind of nod like, yeah, that's how it was. Like maybe he'd know a bit about Vlad Tepes and such. But it was just having a conversation. It wasn't about, let's talk about death and stuff like that. But he just had this strange, it was like he wasn't the same person. It was so strange. It's like, who is this? Who is this? Is this Karl or somebody else? I don't understand. He just stared at me like it was different and it was strange. But, and you figure like losing a second job, you can always, you probably can you can probably get another one. But I don't know. I didn't know if it was getting to him or what the deal was with that. But he just, he had just this strange look in his eye. Like I talked about how Chloe had that creepy stare. It was kind of almost like that. And then I was like, I'm sorry, I texted him when I was out for a walk, like, I'm sorry, was everything okay? And he just said, you were acting weird. And I'm like, Karl would never talk to me like that. Like, he was that pissed off at me. He was that irritated, turned off. And I don't know, like any smile or hint of anything ever since that time was gone. And it wasn't like that with me. It was like that with everybody. Every single person noticed it. And it wasn't because of my joke. It's just he had already changed. And it's like, how can you change that much? And then Tuesday happened, where he suddenly couldn't sign in anymore. And I don't know if he'd accidentally signed in incorrectly or something, couldn't get in. And no matter what we try to do to help him, he just kind of would get more and more upset. And no matter how we'd say, I'm sorry, I'm trying my best, he would just have that weird stare. And the smile, the understanding, the genuine person just didn't seem to exist anymore. And then it's like the supervisor texted a little group text of me and him, and they're saying how tomorrow we'll get it all figured out. And all he simply replied with was okay. Karl, that is. And on Wednesday, Karl didn't show up. You figure, okay, maybe he's just frustrated and he wants to keep waiting or whatever. We'll see if we can figure this out. Thursday, Karl didn't show up. Friday, Karl didn't show up. Yeah. And then, well, Monday, Tuesday, still no Karl. And then Wednesday came, the Wednesday after the previous Wednesday, if you know what I mean. So like a good 7 days later, we hear that, we hear rumors that, no, it was even the day before, like Tuesday, like his sister has had, like nobody's heard from him. Nobody's heard from him for days. His daughter, 28-year-old daughter, hadn't heard from him, and then it just came in my head. It can't be. I figured he was just frustrated and maybe figuring things out, but it turned out that Karl had. They never officially said it, but you put two and two together. You just read between the lines as to what happened to Karl. You read between the lines. He'd taken his own life. And it's just one of the. It hit a lot of us like a ton of bricks. I'm not one to cry in front of a bunch of people, but more privately a little, more like that. Some people cry outwardly in front of everyone. So that's obviously we're all, we all have our own ways of doing things. And kind of in a way, it's kind of like grieving here on Mysterious Adventures, because he was one of the only people that would ever come up and ask me, when's the next adventure? Like somebody in real life rather than like online. And those of you online that have asked about, Purple Mafia, Brave the Wild, or this show, podcast, I cherish you so much. I cherish you just as much as I cherish Kyle. And I mean that. It's just that it was, like, wow, somebody in person actually wants to listen to my podcast. I mean, wow. And then, not only that, but the nice, friendly person he was that everybody had appreciated so much, because there was an innocence to him. He never got angry at anybody. He never showed any negativity or anything like that. Until that strange Monday, and led into Tuesday and Wednesday. And he must have taken his life that way. The Wednesday before, I don't know if he's been deceased for a week or something, which is horrifying to think about, or something along those lines. But one of the coworkers was also a dear friend. She said that, she happens to be from Liberia. She said it was like his soul left him, like he wasn't the same person, and he really wasn't. He really wasn't. And me, I again, with respect to, that's why I'm keeping the name private, because we're just going to keep that pretty much as a dear friend at work named Karl, which is not his real name. So it felt like maybe it was some kind of demonic influence, and that's not just a Christian going, oh, it's always demons, but what else could it be? What else could it be? It's not a machine. He's not a machine, and whatever was influencing him wasn't a machine either. What else could it be? Like, honestly, like I would challenge anybody to come up with a different solution on that. oh, like chemical imbalance, this and that. Seriously, chemical imbalance? Like, why would a person completely change? And what chemicals are we talking about here? Like, I mean, why would chemicals change that much? That somebody's whole personality would change? Everything about them? It wasn't Kyle anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't Karl anymore. I don't think it was Karl. It was like, I don't know. It was somebody else, something else. It wasn't him. Like, it couldn't have been. Somebody's entire personality changes, and then next thing you know, they're gone. Like, what was he listening to? What voices was he listening to? It was literally like something had kind of overcome him and taken over, like some type of darkness. Like, not only was he in a dark place, but it was like that dark place or darkness had overtaken him already. And it's one of the most horrifying things, actually, to be quite honest with you. And that's one of the other reasons. It's like, sure, you're emotional, you're sad, you're heartbroken, but the way people were crying about losing a dear friend at work, you understand that completely. But in my case, it's like I saw something else. They didn't see it. They didn't see the strange look in his eye. Those 2 days, Monday into Tuesday, that strange look in his eye that just didn't seem like it was the same person. That's kind of the whole point here, and that's kind of like, you could call it it's very mysterious, to say the least. And I'm not trying to make a show out of it and try to get attention for this, other than to maybe plant seeds into people. Like, if you see signs of something like this, do anything and everything you can to prevent them from hurting themselves, because there's a pretty good possibility they might. It's not a joke. It absolutely isn't. It is not a joke at all. As for what happens with people that commit suicide, that's between them and God, and I can't judge. I cannot. I'm a mere person, just like everybody else listening right now. All three of you listening right now, or two of you, or one of you, I have no idea. I'm just talking. I'm just teasing, but we're all just kind of what we are. That's between Karl and God. Karl and God. How things turned out afterwards, after he had deceased. But obviously one of the strangest, saddest, and, you know, in a lot of ways disappointing as well. Like, so disappointing, so sad. It sounded like this show may have been planting a seed in him, you know, because there's obviously a very Christian vibe to this show. That maybe, just maybe, hopefully, please Lord, that maybe, just maybe, somehow through this show, you know, that God may have planted a seed in him somehow before it was too late. But I don't know. I don't know how all that. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened between him and between Kyle and God along the way, and I don't know why Karl had messed that up. I keep saying Kyle. That's an incorrect name. Also, it's a completely different name. It's not either one of those two. So we're just going to stick with Karl. I apologize with that, but I have no idea what the true story is with all of that at the end of the day. With all of that said, that's kind of about it. It's going to be a short episode because obviously it's not about me at all. It's about Karl, and we love him so much. That's all we're going to say. We love him so much, and which, you know, the family the best, just in case one of them may be somehow, some way, years down the road, happen on this show and think, is that the same person? Is that, you know, it's like, yeah, well, I guess it's up to you to decide if that's who it is. But at the end of the day, it's a very sad day, very sad week. It's a very sad episode, and my heart goes out to Karl's family in so many ways. It is a sad, heartbreaking thing. And as to what truly happened, that's again, I guess, between him and God as to what truly happened. With that said, wishing all of you the best, and we will be back with a Mysterious Adventures episode hopefully pretty soon. Have some more ideas coming up. But with that, I'm not going to stand around here plugging this and plugging that. I'm just going to probably go out of this episode silently. And before that, though, we will give Karl a moment of silence. Thank you, Karl, for being a dear friend, not only to me, but to many other people. Thank you. Thank you, and God bless you. And we missed you very much. Thank you for listening to this show, and we will be back with the Mysterious Adventures episode soon.